The pregnancy test slipped from her trembling fingers, clattering against the bathroom tile. 2 pink lines. Impossible. Zara Reed stared at the plastic stick as if it had personally betrayed her. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not with him. 3 weeks ago she'd been nobody, just another hard-working nurse at Memorial Hospital struggling to pay off student loans. 3 weeks ago she hadn't known what Alexander Stone's skin felt like against hers, or how his eyes crinkled when he truly smiled. 3 weeks ago she hadn't made the biggest mistake of her life by falling into bed with a man who collected women like vintage cars, temporary prizes to be admired briefly then traded in for newer models. This isn't possible, she whispered to her reflection. The bathroom light cast harsh shadows across her face, highlighting the dark circles that had formed under her eyes from too many night shifts and too little sleep. Her normally smooth dark skin looked ashen with shock. Alexander Stone couldn't have children. It was a well-known fact among hospital staff, not that anyone discussed it openly. The billionaire hospital donor had been in a terrible car accident years ago. The injuries had left him unable to father children, according to medical records she'd accidentally glimpsed while filing paperwork. The same paperwork that had led to their meeting in the first place. Zara sank down onto the cold bathroom floor, her back against the tub, mind racing through the impossibility of it all. She wasn't stupid. She knew her biology. If she was pregnant, and 3 tests now confirmed she was, there could only be one father. In the past year there had only been one man. One night. One enormous mistake. The benefit gala had been like something from a movie. Zara had only attended because her supervisor insisted all senior nursing staff make an appearance to impress donors. She'd worn a simple black dress, the only formal thing she owned, and planned to stay exactly 1 hour before slipping away. Then Alexander Stone had walked in, and like every other woman in the room, she'd found it hard to look away. Tall, with broad shoulders and a confident stride, he moved through the crowd of expensive suits and designer dresses like a shark through water. Everyone knew who he was. The tech mogul turned investor whose foundation had donated millions to the hospital's new children's wing. What Zara hadn't expected was for those piercing blue eyes to find her across the room, or for him to make his way directly to her corner. "You're not drinking," he'd said, nodding at her empty hands. "I'm working technically," she'd replied, surprised to find her voice steady. And somehow that simple exchange had turned into hours of conversation. He'd asked about her work, actually listened to her answers. They'd talked about patients and procedures, about the healthcare system's flaws, about her dreams for better patient care. Not once had he mentioned his billions or his business empire. By the time he'd invited her up to his penthouse for a nightcap, Zara had almost forgotten who he was. Almost. The morning after had brought reality crashing back. She'd slipped out while he was in the shower, leaving behind a simple note. "Thank you for a lovely evening. Best wishes, Zara." No phone number. No last name. She'd never expected to see him again. Until now. Zara picked up the pregnancy test again, as if looking at it one more time might change the result. The 2 pink lines remained stubbornly visible. A miracle, some might call it. A nightmare, others would say. Her phone buzzed on the counter, making her jump. A text from her best friend Tasha. "Did you take the test?" Zara typed back with shaking hands. "Positive. All 3. 3 dots appeared immediately, then, "OMG. Coming over now. Don't move." But moving was exactly what Zara needed to do. In 9 months, less now, there would be a baby. Her baby. Alexander Stone's baby. A child that, according to medical science, shouldn't exist. She needed to tell him. Or did she? He was Alexander Stone, for heaven's sake. Billionaire, philanthropist, notorious bachelor. What would he think? That she'd somehow tricked him? That she was after his money? Would he even believe the child was his, given his supposed infertility? Rising to her feet, Zara caught her reflection again. Behind the shock in her eyes, there was something else now. Determination. Whatever happened next, she would handle it. She always did. The doorbell rang, announcing Tasha's arrival. Zara took one deep breath, then another. Time to face the first of many conversations about this miracle baby, the child no one, least of all its father, had ever expected. 7 days after discovering her pregnancy, Zara's hands shook as she prepared a patient's medication. The hospital's fluorescent lights seemed particularly harsh today, highlighting her exhaustion. She hadn't slept well since taking those tests. "Reed, you're needed in the conference room," Nurse Manager Wilson's voice cut through her thoughts. "Now?" Zara asked, glancing at the medication cart. "Immediately. Andrews will cover your patients." Wilson's tone left no room for questions. Walking down the sterile hallway, Zara tried to quiet the anxiety building in her chest. Was this about her recent application for the specialized pediatric nursing program? Or had someone noticed her running to the bathroom with morning sickness? She pushed open the heavy door to the conference room and froze. Sitting at the head of the long table was Alexander Stone. Their eyes met instantly. His widened slightly, the only indication he recognized her. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent, his dark hair perfectly styled, his face a mask of professional detachment. "Ms. Reed," he said, voice smooth as polished marble. "Please join us." Only then did Zara notice the room's other occupants. The hospital director, Dr. Winters, and two people she didn't recognize. "This is Ms. Zara Reed," Dr. Winters explained to the group. "One of our most dedicated nurses. She's been instrumental in implementing the new patient care protocols." Alexander nodded, but his eyes never left her face. "Ms. Reed and I have met briefly," he said. If the others heard anything unusual in his tone, they gave no indication. "Ms. Reed," Dr. Winters continued, "Mr. Stone is considering funding an expansion of our nursing education program. Since you've been vocal about improvements, we thought you could provide valuable input." Zara's mind raced. Was this a coincidence? Had he arranged this meeting to see her? Did he even remember their night together? For the next hour, she somehow managed to participate in the discussion, offering practical suggestions about training needs and staffing challenges. All while acutely aware of Alexander's gaze repeatedly returning to her, studying her as if she were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. When the meeting finally ended, the others filed out, leaving discussions of budget allocations and implementation timelines echoing in the air. Zara gathered her notes, preparing to escape. "Ms. Reed," Alexander's voice stopped her at the door. "A moment, please." She turned slowly, hands pressed against her stomach in an unconscious protective gesture. "Mr. Stone?" He approached, stopping at a respectable distance. Up close, she could see the faint circles under his eyes, partially concealed by what she suspected was expensive concealer. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said quietly. "I work here," she replied, striving for a neutral tone. "Full-time for the past 4 years." He nodded slowly. "You left without saying goodbye." "That morning. I left a note. Thank you for a lovely evening. Best wishes, Zara," he quoted. Not exactly informative. Heat rushed to her face. "What did you expect? A detailed explanation of why I wasn't sticking around for breakfast." Something flickered in his eyes, hurt perhaps, though that seemed impossible for a man like him. "I expected a chance to see you again." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't how the conversation was supposed to go. In her imagination he'd been dismissive, perhaps offering money to take care of the problem, once she told him about the pregnancy. "I need to get back to my patients," she said, stepping around him. His hand reached out, not touching her but hovering near her arm. "Have dinner with me." "Excuse me?" "Dinner. Tonight. Or tomorrow if that's better for your schedule." Zara stared at him. Was this his standard approach after one-night stands? Track them down at work and ask them to dinner? But then their night together had been anything but standard. The memory of his gentleness, his attentiveness, flashed through her mind. For hours she'd forgotten he was Alexander Stone, billionaire. He'd just been Alex, the man who listened to her dreams and made her laugh. "Why?" she asked finally. His expression softened. "Because I haven't stopped thinking about you, Zara Reed. And because you ran from my penthouse like it was on fire, which suggests there's more conversation to be had." If only he knew how much more. Her hand unconsciously moved to her stomach again. Alexander noticed the gesture, his gaze dropping briefly to her midsection before returning to her face. Something unreadable passed across his features. "Fine," she said, the word escaping before she could reconsider. "Dinner. Tomorrow night. But somewhere private. I don't need my face in the tabloids." Relief visibly washed over him. "I know a place. I'll send a car for you at 7. I can drive myself." "Of course," he conceded, a small smile playing at his lips. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "My personal number. Text me your address and I'll send you the restaurant details." Their fingers brushed as she took the card, sending an unwelcome tingle up her arm. Zara slipped it into her pocket, nodding curtly before turning to leave. "Zara?" he called softly as her hand touched the doorknob. She paused but didn't turn. "It really is good to see you again." She closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself. "Tomorrow night, Alexander." Only when she was halfway down the hall did she allow herself to breathe normally again. 24 hours to decide whether to tell him about the impossible child growing inside her. The child that, according to everything she knew, shouldn't exist. The restaurant was nothing like Zara expected. No gleaming chandeliers or snooty waiters. Instead, Alexander had chosen a small Italian place tucked away on a quiet street, with checkered tablecloths and photographs of Italy covering the walls. The owner, an elderly man named Paolo, greeted Alexander with a warm hug, leading them to a private room in the back. "You come here often?" Zara asked as they settled at a corner table, soft candlelight flickering between them. Alexander smiled, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him in his simple black sweater and dark jeans. "It was my mother's favorite place. After she died, I kept coming. Paolo refuses to let me pay, so I sneak money into their cash register when he's not looking." The image of billionaire Alexander Stone sneaking bills into a cash register made her laugh despite her nervousness. The dinner began easily enough. They talked about the hospital, about her nursing career. He told her about growing up with an Italian mother and English father, about summers in Florence and winters in London. She shared stories of her childhood in a small town outside Atlanta, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to put her through nursing school. "Your mother sounds remarkable," Alexander said, refilling her water glass. "She was," Zara replied. "She died my second year of college. Cancer." His eyes softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry. It never gets easier, does it? Losing a parent." "No," she agreed, surprised by his understanding. "It doesn't." The waiter brought their main courses, pasta for her, risotto for him. The rich aromas momentarily distracted her from the weight of what she needed to say. "So," Alexander said after they'd eaten in comfortable silence for a few minutes, "are we going to discuss why you ran that morning? Or why you've been avoiding looking directly at me for more than 5 seconds tonight?" Zara set down her fork. "I ran because I knew what that night was. A one-time thing. Rich, powerful man meets ordinary woman. They share a night together. End of story." "Is that what you thought it was?" His voice was quiet. "Isn't that what it always is with you?" She hadn't meant to sound so accusatory. Alexander's expression shuddered. "You've been reading tabloids." "I've been reading between the lines," she countered. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Stone." "Alexander," he corrected. "Or Alex. And my reputation is largely manufactured. Sells more papers that way." "So you're not famous for dating models and actresses?" He sighed. "I've had relationships, yes. Most ended because the women were more interested in Alexander Stone, billionaire, than in me." "And what about me?" Zara challenged. "What was I to you that night?" His eyes met hers, startlingly sincere. "A beautiful woman who didn't give a damn about my money. Who argued with me about healthcare policy and called me privileged to my face. Who made me laugh for the first time in months." He paused. "Who disappeared before I could ask to see her again." Zara swallowed hard. This wasn't going according to plan. He was supposed to be arrogant, dismissive, easy to walk away from after delivering her news. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, gathering her courage. Alexander sat back, his expression becoming guarded. "I'm listening." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "That night we spent together, something happened. Something impossible." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Zara took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant, Alexander." The silence that followed felt endless. His face went completely blank, then shifted through disbelief, confusion, and something that looked like anger. "That's not possible," he finally said, his voice low. "I know about your accident," she admitted. "I saw your medical records at the hospital. I know you were told you couldn't have children." His expression hardened. "You looked at my private medical information?" "Not intentionally," she clarified quickly. "I was filing paperwork. It was an accident. And now you're pregnant." His tone was flat. "Convenient timing, running into me at the hospital." The implication stung. "I didn't know you would be there. I didn't plan any of this." "So what are you saying? That this is some sort of miracle baby?" His laugh was harsh, humorless. "Do you know how many women have tried to claim they're carrying my child over the years?" Zara pushed back her chair, anger burning away her nervousness. "I don't want your money, Alexander. I don't want anything from you. I only told you because I thought you deserved to know." "Know what?" "That you're carrying a child that medically cannot be mine." His voice had risen slightly. "I haven't been with anyone else in over a year," she said quietly, dignity in every word. "The baby is yours. Believe it or don't, that's your choice. She stood, gathering her purse. Thank you for dinner. Goodbye, Alexander. His hand shot out, catching her wrist. Wait. Something in his voice, a crack in the armor, made her pause. How far along? He asked, not meeting her eyes. About 7 weeks. The timing matches. Alexander released her wrist, running a hand through his hair. 3 doctors told me it was impossible. After the accident, the surgeries. He trailed off, then squared his shoulders. I want a paternity test. Fine, she agreed immediately. There are non-invasive tests we can do. They're safe for the baby. He nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. And if, he paused, seeming to struggle with the concept, if it is mine? Then you can be as involved as you want to be. Or not at all. That's your choice too. Silence stretched between them again, less hostile now but filled with uncertainty. Sit down, Zara, he said finally. Please. We should talk about this properly. She hesitated, then slowly sank back into her chair. I'm sorry for what I implied, he offered. It's just, you have to understand this shouldn't be possible. I know, she said softly. I'm a nurse, remember? I understand the medical implications. Alexander studied her face, his expression gradually softening. If there's even the smallest chance. He began, then stopped. I need time to process this. I understand, Zara replied, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the evening weighed heavily on her shoulders. Can I drive you home? He asked. She nodded, too tired to argue. As they left the restaurant, Paolo winked at them, clearly misreading the situation as a successful date. If only he knew. In Alexander's sleek black car, they rode in silence through the city streets. When they reached her apartment building, modest but well-maintained, he put the car in park but kept the engine running. I'll contact you about the paternity test, he said, hands gripping the steering wheel. Okay. She reached for the door handle. Zara. His voice stopped her. Whatever happens, thank you for telling me. She nodded, unable to form words around the lump in her throat. As she walked up the steps to her building, she could feel his eyes following her, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, or possibly the best decision. The private medical facility Alexander chose for the paternity test spoke of discreet wealth. Understated but obviously expensive. No hospital logos or bright signage, just a simple plaque reading Westbrook Medical Services, beside a heavy wooden door. Zara sat in a plush waiting room chair, trying not to fidget as Alexander paced near the reception desk. Neither had spoken much since arriving. The tension between them had morphed into something more complex since their dinner 2 weeks ago. Not quite trust but no longer open hostility. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. Good luck today. Call me after? She typed back a quick, will do, before slipping the phone back into her purse. When she looked up, Alexander was watching her. Friend? He asked. Best friend, Zara answered. The only person who knows about this. He nodded, resuming his pacing. She noticed he wore casual clothes today, expensive still, but jeans and a gray sweater rather than his usual business attire. It made him look younger, more accessible. More like the man she'd spent the night with, rather than the billionaire whose face occasionally appeared on business magazines. Mr. Stone, Ms. Reed? A nurse appeared in the doorway. We're ready for you. The procedure was simple enough. Blood drawn from Zara's arm to analyze the baby's DNA from the small amounts circulating in her bloodstream, then a cheek swab from Alexander. What wasn't simple was sitting next to him in that small examination room, both acutely aware of what hung in the balance. Results typically take 3 to 5 business days, the technician explained as she labeled their samples. Alexander cleared his throat. I've arranged for expedited processing. We should know by tomorrow afternoon. Of course he had. Zara bit back a comment about money buying speed. Instead, she asked the technician, is everything looking normal with the pregnancy? From the blood work. The young woman smiled. From what I can see, yes, but Dr. Westbrook will review everything. She's an excellent OB/GYN if you're looking for one. Thank you, Zara said, ignoring Alexander's searching look. As they left the facility, she expected him to say goodbye in the parking lot. Instead, he asked, have you eaten lunch? She blinked in surprise. No, not yet. There's a cafe around the corner. Nothing fancy, but they make good sandwiches. When she hesitated, he added, I think we should talk, Zara. About possibilities. The cafe was indeed nothing fancy, just a small, sunny place with mismatched furniture and plants hanging in the windows. They found a quiet corner table, ordered sandwiches and iced tea, and faced each other across the wooden surface. "You haven't asked about my medical situation," Alexander began, surprising her. "It's private," she replied. "I shouldn't have seen your records in the first place." He studied her for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. "The car accident happened 5 years ago. Head-on collision with a drunk driver. I was trapped in the wreckage for over an hour before they got me out." Zara's medical training kicked in. Being trapped so long meant possible crush injuries, complications. "The steering column crushed my lower abdomen," he continued, confirming her suspicions. "Among other injuries." Several surgeries later, 3 specialists confirmed the same prognosis. No possibility of biological children. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, meaning it. Alexander's mouth quirked in a humorless smile. "I never particularly wanted children before that. But being told it was impossible?" He shrugged. "Human nature, I suppose. We want what we can't have." Their food arrived, providing a momentary distraction. Zara picked at her sandwich, suddenly not very hungry. "If," Alexander said after a few bites, "and it's still an if, the test shows I'm the father, what do you want?" "Truly?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. "I want to be a good mother," she answered honestly. "Beyond that, I haven't thought too far ahead." "Financial support wouldn't be an issue," he said, then quickly added, "That's not meant to sound like a payoff. It's just a fact." "I don't need your money," she replied, an edge creeping into her voice. "I have a stable job, healthcare benefits, savings." "You're carrying what might be my child," he countered. "Of course I would provide financial support." Zara set down her sandwich. "Can we wait until we know for sure before discussing arrangements?" Alexander looked like he wanted to argue but nodded instead. "Fair enough." They ate in silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. "Have you had an ultrasound yet?" She shook her head. "I have an appointment next week." He hesitated, then asked, Would it be all right if I came with you? If the test is positive?" The request surprised her. In her imagined scenarios, Alexander had either denied paternity or offered financial support from a distance. She hadn't considered he might want active involvement. "If the test is positive," she agreed cautiously, "you can come." Something like relief crossed his face. He opened his mouth to say more when his phone rang. Glancing at the screen, he frowned. "I need to take this." "Excuse me." As he stepped outside to take the call, Zara found herself studying him through the window. The sunlight caught in his dark hair, highlighting strands of premature gray at his temples. His free hand gestured as he spoke, his brow furrowed in concentration. He looked like what he was, a powerful man used to giving orders and solving problems. Could this man be a father to her child? Would he want to be? Alexander returned, apologizing for the interruption. As they finished their meal, the conversation shifted to safer topics. Hospital improvements, books they'd read, places they'd traveled. By the time they parted ways in the parking lot, something had shifted subtly between them. "I'll call you as soon as I get the results," he promised. Zara nodded, suddenly nervous again. "Either way, Alexander, I hope you can find some peace with whatever the test shows." He held her gaze for a long moment. "Tomorrow then." "Tomorrow," she echoed, watching as he walked to his car, wondering how one test could change both their lives so completely. The call came at 2:17 p.m. the next day. Zara was in the hospital break room, trying to force down a bland cafeteria salad, when her phone lit up with Alexander's name. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello." "It's positive." His voice sounded strange, tight with some emotion she couldn't identify. "The baby is mine." The salad forgotten, Zara leaned back against the wall, eyes closing as the reality washed over her. "Are you sure?" 99.9998% certainty, he replied. "I had them run it twice." "Oh." It was all she could manage. Silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of confirmation. This was no longer a theoretical situation. This was real. "Can you meet me?" Alexander finally asked. "After your shift? There's somewhere I want to take you." Curiosity overrode her caution. "I finish at 7. I'll pick you up at the staff entrance." The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Zara moved mechanically through her tasks, checking IVs and administering medications while her mind raced with implications. The test was positive. Alexander Stone, infertile billionaire, was the father of her child. A medical impossibility made flesh. At 7 sharp, his black Tesla waited at the staff entrance. Alexander stepped out as she approached, opening the passenger door without a word. He looked different tonight. His usual polished appearance replaced by something more raw, his hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. They drove in silence through the city, then out toward the suburbs, finally turning onto a tree-lined road that wound up into the hills. When Alexander finally parked, they were outside a large, modern house perched on the hillside, massive windows reflecting the setting sun. "Where are we?" Zara asked as he led her to the front door. "My house," he answered simply, typing a code into a keypad. "Not the penthouse where we met. This is where I actually live." The door swung open to reveal an interior that surprised her. Warm and inviting despite its modern architecture, with comfortable furniture and artwork that looked chosen for enjoyment rather than investment value. "You didn't bring me here to see your house," she said, following him into a spacious living room overlooking the city below. "No." Alexander gestured for her to sit, then disappeared down a hallway, returning moments later with a leather-bound book. He sat beside her on the sofa, placing the book between them. "This is my medical file," he explained. "Everything from the accident, the surgeries, the consultations. I want you to see it." Zara's nursing training made her hesitate. "Alexander, your medical information is private. You don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "I need you to understand why today's news is significant." She nodded slowly, opening the file with careful hands. Inside were detailed surgical reports, imaging studies, and consultations from specialists across the country. She read through them with professional detachment, until the implications fully registered. The damage had been extensive: trauma to blood vessels, scarring that should have made conception impossible. 3 separate fertility specialists had confirmed complete sterility. According to modern medicine, Alexander Stone could not father a child. "This is..." She began, looking up at him. "Impossible," he finished. "And yet here we are." His gaze dropped to her still flat stomach, wonder replacing the tension in his features. "A miracle." The word hung between them, changing everything. This wasn't just an unexpected pregnancy. It was something that defied medical explanation. "Do you understand now?" Alexander asked softly. "Why I reacted the way I did at dinner? Why I insisted on the test?" Zara nodded, closing the file. "I do. And I'm sorry for thinking the worst of you." "I gave you reason to," he admitted. "My reputation isn't entirely undeserved. Before the accident, I was not always a good man." His honesty surprised her. There was vulnerability in his expression now, something she hadn't seen before. "What happens now?" she asked, the question that had been burning in her mind since his call. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, confirming her earlier suspicion that he'd been doing exactly that all day. "That depends partly on you," he said. "But I want to be involved, Zara. Fully involved." "What does fully involved mean to you?" He leaned forward, eyes intent on hers. "I want to be at every doctor's appointment. I want to help prepare for the baby's arrival. I want to be a father. A real one." His intensity should have frightened her. Instead, it stirred something warm inside her chest. "What about me?" she asked quietly. "What am I in this scenario? The woman who happens to be carrying your miracle baby?" Alexander blinked, clearly caught off guard by the question. You're the mother of my child. And nothing more?" Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Zara, I'm not asking for a relationship under false pretenses. The baby changes things, yes, but I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated," she interrupted. "I'm just trying to understand what you're proposing." He was silent for a long moment, studying her face. "The night we met," he finally said, "before anything happened between us, I was already drawn to you. Your intelligence, your passion for your work, the way you saw me as a person, not just a billionaire. The baby doesn't change that. If anything, it just gives me a reason to ask for what I wanted anyway, a chance to know you better." The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip. "And if there had been no baby?" "I was looking for you," he admitted. "After that night. You didn't leave your last name or number. I only knew you worked at the hospital, but not which department." "That's why you were at the meeting," she realized. He nodded. "I told the hospital director I wanted to meet with nursing staff about the new program. I was hoping you'd be there." The revelation left her momentarily speechless. All her assumptions about their situation shifted in an instant. "Alexander," she began carefully, "I'm not looking for a relationship based on obligation either. This pregnancy is unexpected for both of us. We need to think about what's best for the baby first." "I agree," he said. But I don't think we should dismiss the possibility that what's best for the baby might include its parents exploring whatever is between them. Before she could respond, he stood up, pacing to the window. I'm not asking for promises, Zara. Just openness to possibilities. The setting sun cast his profile in golden light, highlighting the strength in his jaw, the uncertainty in his posture. In that moment he wasn't Alexander Stone, billionaire. He was just a man, one who had just discovered he was going to be a father against all medical odds. I can be open to possibilities, she finally said. The smile that broke across his face was blinding in its intensity. That's all I ask. He walked her back to the sofa, sitting closer this time. Now, tell me about the ultrasound appointment. What time should I pick you up? As they discussed the details, Zara found herself relaxing, the tension of the past weeks easing. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Not as a couple necessarily, but as two people united by an unexpected miracle. The ultrasound technician moved the wand across Zara's gel-covered stomach, adjusting angles and pressing buttons on the machine. Alexander sat beside the examination table, his normally confident demeanor replaced by nervous anticipation. His hand hovered near Zara's, not quite touching but close enough that she could feel its warmth. There we go, the technician said, turning the screen toward them. That flickering? That's your baby's heartbeat. A rapid, rhythmic pulsing appeared on the screen, a tiny life announcing its presence to the world. Alexander's breath caught audibly. Is everything normal? He asked, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. The technician smiled. Everything looks perfect. Strong heartbeat, measuring right on track for 10 weeks. Zara felt Alexander's pinky finger tentatively brush against hers. Without thinking, she captured his hand, squeezing it as they both stared at the screen in wonder. I'll give you two a moment while I print some images, the technician said tactfully, slipping out of the room. In the sudden quiet, the sound of the baby's heartbeat filled the space between them. That's our child, Alexander whispered, his thumb tracing circles on the back of Zara's hand. The simple word, our, carried such weight. She looked at him, surprised to see moisture in his eyes. Are you crying? She asked softly. He blinked rapidly. Allergies? He claimed, though his smile betrayed him. I never thought I'd see this. Hear this. Impulsively, Zara squeezed his hand. Looks like the doctors were wrong. Spectacularly wrong, he agreed, his smile widening. The technician returned with printouts, explaining the images as she handed them over. Alexander studied each one with intense focus, asking questions about development and timing. His genuine interest touched something deep inside Zara. This wasn't just obligation. This was joy. Afterward, in the parking lot, Alexander hesitated before opening her car door. I'd like to take you to lunch if you're free? The vulnerability in his request made it impossible to refuse. I'd like that. They ended up at a small cafe with outdoor seating overlooking a park. The late morning sun warmed Zara's shoulders as they settled at a corner table. You're glowing, Alexander said, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, that's probably a cliché. Zara laughed. It is, but I'll take it. Better than you look tired, which is what my co-workers have been saying. Have you told anyone at work? He asked, stirring his coffee. Not yet. I wanted to wait until... She trailed off. Until you were sure about me, he finished for her. His tone held no judgment. That's reasonable. Their conversation flowed easily as they ate, discussing the ultrasound and upcoming appointments. Alexander took notes in his phone. Due dates, developmental milestones, recommended vitamins. His thoroughness made Zara smile. What? He asked, catching her expression. You're taking this very seriously. Of course I am, he replied, looking puzzled. Aren't you? Yes, but... She searched for the right words. I guess I didn't expect you to be so involved. Most men don't research prenatal vitamins. Alexander set down his phone. I'm not most men, Zara. And this isn't most situations. His gaze was steady, intense. I've been given something I was told was impossible. I don't take that lightly. The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. This was a side of Alexander Stone the world didn't see, the vulnerable, earnest man behind the billion-dollar name. As they finished their meal, Alexander's phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications. His expression darkened as he checked the screen. Problem? Zara asked. Potentially. He sighed, setting the phone down. My PR team is trying to reach me. Usually means someone's digging into my personal life. The reminder of who he was, his fame, his wealth, the constant scrutiny, hit Zara like a bucket of cold water. In their private bubble of ultrasound appointments and cafe lunches, she'd almost forgotten. Would that include me? She asked quietly. Us. Alexander's expression softened. I would never let anyone intrude on your privacy, Zara. Or the babies. That's a promise. She wanted to believe him, but the reality of their situation suddenly seemed overwhelming. She was a regular nurse from a small town. He was Alexander Stone. Their child would be heir to a fortune, subject to public interest from birth. Hey. His hand covered hers on the table. One day at a time, remember? We'll figure this out. Zara nodded, forcing a smile. One day at a time. They parted with tentative plans for dinner later that week, Alexander promising to send information about an obstetrician who specialized in high-risk pregnancies. Just to be careful, he'd assured her. 3 days later, Zara was restocking supplies when Tasha burst into the storage room, eyes wide with alarm. Have you seen it? She demanded, thrusting her phone in Zara's face. The headline made her blood run cold. Stone Cold Miracle. Billionaire Alexander Stone expecting child despite medical impossibility. The article beneath featured a grainy photo of them leaving the ultrasound clinic, Alexander's hand protectively at her back. How did they? Zara's voice failed her. Medical records leak apparently, Tasha said grimly. Someone at the clinic sold the story. They don't name you at least, but it was only a matter of time. Zara slumped against the shelves, medical supplies forgotten. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, Alexander calling. She couldn't bring herself to answer. The storage room door swung open again. Dr. Winters stood there, expression grave. Ms. Reed. My office, please. Zara followed wordlessly, dread building with each step. In Dr. Winters' office, the hospital director didn't mince words. I assume you've seen the news, she said, gesturing to the tablet on her desk displaying the same headline. Yes, Zara managed. The board is concerned about how this might affect the hospital's relationship with the Stone Foundation. I understand. Zara's voice sounded distant to her own ears. Do you? Dr. Winters leaned forward. The Stone Foundation provides 30% of our operating budget. If Mr. Stone believes someone here leaked his private medical information. No one here did, Zara interrupted. The leak came from the private clinic that did the paternity test. Dr. Winters' eyebrows rose. Paternity test? So the rumors are true. Zara closed her eyes briefly, realizing her mistake. Dr. Winters, I respectfully decline to discuss my personal life. Before the director could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, hurried footsteps. Then the office door opened without a knock, and Alexander Stone strode in, looking nothing like the gentle man who had held her hand during the ultrasound. This was the Alexander Stone of business magazines, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit, expression cold as steel, radiating barely controlled fury. Dr. Winters? He acknowledged with a curt nod. I need to speak with Ms. Reed. Now. The director seemed torn between asserting her authority and not offending a major donor. After a moment's hesitation she stood. I'll give you the room. 10 minutes. As the door closed behind her, Alexander's professional mask cracked. Are you okay? He asked, voice softening as he crossed to Zara. No, she admitted, fighting tears. Alexander, I can't do this. I'm not built for tabloid headlines and privacy breaches. I know, he said, kneeling beside her chair to meet her at eye level. I'm so sorry, Zara. This isn't what I wanted. What happens now? She asked, feeling lost. Alexander took her hands in his. Now we control the narrative. My PR team has prepared a statement confirming that I'm expecting a child but requesting privacy during this personal time. No details about you, no speculation about the medical aspects. And will that work? His expression was grim. For a while. But eventually they'll find out who you are. Your name, your job. They'll dig into your past, your family. The reality of it pressed down on her chest like a weight. I can't live like that, Alexander. I won't have our child grow up under a microscope. Something shifted in his eyes, determination replacing anger. What if you didn't have to? What do you mean? Come with me, he said, standing and pulling her gently to her feet. Not forever, just for now. I have a house on a private island in the Caribbean. Completely secure, totally private. Stay there until the media frenzy dies down. Run away, you mean? The suggestion seemed so unlike the practical, responsible approach she'd expected from him. Think of it as a strategic retreat, he countered, a hint of his usual confidence returning. You can take a leave of absence from work, medical leave even? I can arrange everything. And you'd come too? She asked, uncertain why this mattered so much. His expression softened. As often as I can. I'd need to handle some things here first, make arrangements to work remotely. Zara hesitated, torn between fear of the media circus and reluctance to upend her entire life. You don't have to decide right now, Alexander assured her. But please at least consider it. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from the hospital entrance security. Ms. Reed, there are reporters asking for you at the main entrance. She showed Alexander the message, watching his jaw tighten. Come home with me, he said, urgency in his voice. Just for tonight. We can figure this out somewhere safe. In that moment, facing reporters and speculation and the unraveling of her private life, Alexander's offer felt like the only lifeline available. Okay, she agreed, surprising herself. Just for tonight. Relief washed over his face. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm arranging a car at the service entrance. No one will see us leave. As she gathered her things and followed Alexander through the hospital's back corridors, Zara wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Or if perhaps she was finally accepting that life with Alexander Stone would never be simple or ordinary. But then again, nothing about their situation had been ordinary from the start. Alexander's mountain home, which had seemed so impressive during her first visit, now felt like a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city below, but specialized glass prevented anyone from seeing in. Security systems ensured no uninvited guests could approach. For the first time since seeing the headline, Zara could breathe. Better? Alexander asked, handing her a cup of herbal tea as she curled up on his sofa. Much, she admitted, accepting the warm mug gratefully. Thank you. He sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. I've spoken with my head of security. The media doesn't know who you are yet, but they're looking. It's only a matter of time. Zara sipped her tea, trying to process the surreal turn her life had taken. All this because of a miracle baby. Not just any miracle baby, Alexander said softly. Our miracle baby. The simple phrase warmed something inside her. Despite everything, the shock of pregnancy, the media frenzy, the upheaval of her carefully structured life, she couldn't regret the child growing inside her. Their child. Tell me about the island, she said, surprising herself with the request. Relief flashed across Alexander's face. You're considering it? I'm considering all options, she clarified. Including temporary relocation. He nodded, accepting her caution. It's a small island in the Bahamas. 5 acres, completely private. The house has its own medical facilities. I had them installed after the accident when I needed ongoing care. And no one would know I was there? No one except those we trust completely, he promised. My staff there has been with me for years. All sign ironclad confidentiality agreements. Zara set down her tea, suddenly overwhelmed. This is crazy, Alexander. 3 months ago I was just a nurse with a normal life. Now I'm pregnant with a billionaire's miracle baby, hiding from reporters, considering fleeing to a private island. When you put it that way, it does sound rather dramatic, he acknowledged with a slight smile. Like something out of a novel. Despite everything, a laugh escaped her. A very unrealistic novel. His smile widened, and something in his expression made her heart skip. And yet here we are. Here they were indeed. Sitting in his living room, planning escape routes like characters in a spy film. The absurdity of it all hit her suddenly, and Zara found herself laughing. A release of tension that had been building for weeks. Alexander watched her, his own expression lightening. I've missed that sound, he said when her laughter subsided. What sound? Your laugh. I heard it that first night at the gala. It's what made me walk across the room to talk to you. The admission startled her. I thought you approached me because I wasn't drinking. That was my opening line, he confessed. The truth is, I heard you laugh at something the hospital administrator said and... He shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. I wanted to know who had a laugh like that. Warmth spread through Zara's chest that had nothing to do with the tea. You never told me that before. There's a lot we haven't had time to tell each other, he pointed out. Like how you take your coffee or your favorite book, or whether you prefer mornings or evenings. Mornings, she answered automatically. Definitely mornings. Evenings for me, he countered. I do my best thinking after dark. They spent the next hour trading small, ordinary details. Favorite colors, blue for her, green for him. Childhood pets, a cat named Boots for her, a series of fish with increasingly elaborate names for him. Rainy day activities, reading murder mysteries for her, playing piano for him. In that quiet conversation, something shifted between them. The extraordinary circumstances of their connection faded temporarily into the background, allowing space for normal connection to grow. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with Zara. Alexander showed her to a guest room, spacious and comfortable with its own attached bathroom and a view of the city lights. "If you need anything, I'm just down the hall," he told her, lingering in the doorway. "Thank you," she said, meaning it for more than just the room. "For everything today." He nodded, a soft smile playing at his lips. "Get some rest, Zara. Tomorrow we can make decisions." Sleep came surprisingly easily that night, cocooned in the security of Alexander's home. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a moment she forgot where she was, then the events of the previous day rushed back. Following the smell of coffee, she found Alexander in the kitchen, already dressed in casual clothes, typing on his laptop at the counter. "Morning," he greeted, sliding a mug across to her. "I remembered, cream no sugar." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her. "Thank you. How are you feeling?" he asked, closing his laptop to give her his full attention. "Better," she admitted. "Amazing what a good night's sleep can do." Alexander nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "I've made some calls. If you want to go to the island, everything's ready. The jet can leave this afternoon." Zara's hands tightened around her mug. The reality of the decision loomed before her. "What about you?" she asked. "Would you come with me or?" "I'd need a few days to arrange things here," he answered. "But I could join you by the weekend. 4 days at most." 4 days. It wasn't much time apart, yet the thought of facing this alone, even temporarily, made her anxious. As if reading her thoughts, Alexander added, "Dr. Montgomery would accompany you. She's the OB/GYN I mentioned, specializes in high-risk pregnancies. She's agreed to stay on the island as your personal physician for as long as needed." The thoroughness of his planning was both impressive and slightly overwhelming. "You've thought of everything." "I try to," he said simply. "But ultimately, Zara, this is your decision. If you'd rather stay, we'll find another way to manage the situation." She looked at him, really looked at him, taking in the slight shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept much, the tension in his shoulders, the genuine concern in his gaze. In the weeks since discovering her pregnancy, Alexander had consistently put her needs and comfort first, despite his own shock and adjustment. "I'll go," she decided suddenly. "But only temporarily. Until we figure out a more permanent solution." Relief washed over his features. "Thank you. I promise you won't regret it." "Don't make promises you can't keep," she warned, but her tone was light. Alexander's smile was warm, genuine. "I never do." The next few hours passed in a flurry of activity. Alexander's staff packed a bag for her with newly purchased clothes in her size. "How did you know my measurements?" "I have a good eye," while she made arrangements for a medical leave of absence from the hospital. By early afternoon, they were in Alexander's private car, headed for a small airfield outside the city. Zara sat beside him, watching the familiar landscape slip away, wondering when, or if, her life would ever return to normal. "Second thoughts?" Alexander asked, noticing her silence. "A few thousand," she admitted with a wry smile. "But I'm still going." He reached across the seat, his hand finding hers. "I'll be right behind you. 4 days maximum." "I'm holding you to that," she said, squeezing his hand. At the airfield, a sleek private jet waited on the tarmac. A middle-aged woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked dark hair stood at the bottom of the steps. "Dr. Montgomery," Alexander said as they approached. "Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement." "Mr. Stone," she acknowledged with a nod before turning to Zara. "Ms. Reed, it's a pleasure to meet you, though I wish it were under less dramatic circumstances." Zara liked the doctor immediately. Her direct manner and no-nonsense tone promised competence without unnecessary formality. "The pleasure is mine," she replied. "And please call me Zara." "Diana," the doctor offered in return. "Shall we?" As the crew loaded their bags, Alexander pulled Zara aside for a moment of privacy. 4 days, he repeated, his hands gently grasping her shoulders. "I'll bring everything you need from your apartment. Make a list and text it to me." She nodded, suddenly finding it difficult to speak. This was happening so quickly, running away to a private island with a doctor she'd just met, leaving Alexander behind to handle the media storm. "Hey," he said softly, tilting her chin up. "It's going to be okay. I promise." "There you go making promises again," she attempted to joke, her voice wavering. Alexander's expression grew serious. This one I know I can keep. Before she could respond, he leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. The gesture was tender, protective. Something between friendship and something more. Go, he said, stepping back. Get settled. I'll see you soon. Zara boarded the plane with Dr. Montgomery, watching through the window as Alexander stood on the tarmac, hands in his pockets, eyes never leaving the jet until they taxied away. As they took off, rising above the city where her ordinary life now seemed like a distant memory, Zara placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. Whatever came next, she wasn't alone. She had her child, their child, and, increasingly, she had Alexander too. First time on a private jet? Dr. Montgomery asked, breaking into her thoughts. That obvious? Zara smiled. The doctor chuckled. Let me guess, first private island too? Definitely. Well, Diana said, settling back in her plush seat, if you're going to experience these firsts, you might as well do it with Alexander Stone. The man doesn't believe in half measures. Looking around at the luxurious cabin, thinking of the island sanctuary awaiting her, Zara had to agree. Alexander Stone didn't do anything by halves, including, it seemed, unexpected fatherhood. The island was more beautiful than Zara could have imagined. From the air, it appeared as a perfect jewel set in turquoise waters. White sand beaches surrounding lush greenery, with a modern but tasteful house nestled among the palms. As they descended the steps from the jet onto a small but immaculate landing strip, the warm air enveloped her, heavy with the scent of flowers and salt water. Welcome to Sanctuary, said a smiling woman waiting at the bottom of the stairs. I'm Elena, the house manager. We're so pleased to have you here, Ms. Reed. Just Zara, please, she replied, still trying to absorb the surreal beauty of her surroundings. Elena nodded. Of course. Your suite is prepared, and dinner will be ready whenever you'd like it. Sweet. Zara echoed, following Elena toward a waiting electric cart. The East Wing, Elena explained. It has the best morning light and the most privacy. Dr. Montgomery, Diana, smiled at Zara's obvious bewilderment. The house is rather larger than it appears from the air, she explained. You'll get used to it. Zara wasn't sure she would. Her entire apartment back home could have fit 3 times over in the suite Elena showed her to. A master bedroom with a 4-poster bed, a sitting room with comfortable furniture and bookshelves, a bathroom with both a shower and a freestanding tub, and a private terrace overlooking the ocean. Alexander requested we stock the bookshelves with medical journals and mystery novels, Elena mentioned as Zara examined the room. He mentioned those were your preferences. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her deeply. He'd not only remembered their conversation about rainy day activities but had acted on it, ensuring she would have comforts that mattered to her. After Elena left to let her settle in, Diana joined Zara on the terrace, the 2 women watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. How are you feeling? The doctor asked. And I don't just mean physically. Zara appreciated the directness. Overwhelmed. Grateful. Terrified. Diana nodded. All reasonable responses to your situation. Which part? Zara laughed softly. The miracle pregnancy, the media frenzy, or the billionaire almost boyfriend? All of the above, Diana replied with a smile. Though I must say the medical aspects fascinate me most professionally. Zara turned to her. You've seen Alexander's records? With his permission, yes. The damage was extensive. The fact that conception occurred naturally defies medical explanation. Yet here we are, Zara said, echoing Alexander's words from days before. Here you are indeed, Diana agreed. Which is why I'd like to run some additional tests tomorrow if you're amenable. Nothing invasive, just more comprehensive monitoring than a standard pregnancy would require. Of course, Zara agreed readily. After all, wasn't that why she was here? For protection, for care, for the baby's well-being? Later, after a dinner she barely tasted despite its excellence, Zara sat on her terrace in the moonlight. The sound of waves against the shore created a peaceful backdrop as she tried to process the whirlwind her life had become. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Landed safely? She smiled, typing back, safe and still in shock. This place is incredible. His response came quickly, make yourself at home. Anything you need, just ask Elena. Zara hesitated, then wrote, what I need is to know when you'll be here. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, boarding the jet Friday morning. Should land by early afternoon your time. 2 more days. She could manage that. The house is too big, she wrote on impulse. Too quiet. Another pause before his reply, would you prefer music? I can have the house system play whatever you like. No, she typed, surprising herself with her honesty. I prefer you. This time the pause lasted long enough that she thought she'd overstepped. Then, I'd prefer that too. As soon as possible, I promise. Sleep came easier than expected that night, the sound of the ocean a natural lullaby. The next morning, Zara woke to sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the scent of coffee wafting from a small breakfast tray that had been quietly placed on her sitting room table. After breakfast, Diana conducted the promised tests in a state-of-the-art medical suite hidden behind unassuming doors in the west wing of the house. Alexander had this installed after his accident, the doctor explained as she drew blood samples. He required frequent monitoring during his recovery. How long have you known him? Zara asked, curious about the relationship between the doctor and her patient. Since the accident, Diana replied. I was one of his surgical consultants. When he built this place as a recovery sanctuary, he asked me to oversee his care. She smiled slightly. I've been on his payroll ever since, though these days I mainly consult on his medical initiatives rather than his personal health. Until now, Zara noted. Until now, Diana agreed. Though I must say, this is the most medically fascinating case I've encountered in decades of practice. The test took most of the morning. Afterward, Elena suggested a walk along the beach to clear your head. Zara accepted gratefully, finding unexpected peace in the rhythmic wash of waves against the shore and the feel of sand between her toes. That afternoon, exploring the house's extensive library, she stumbled upon a collection of photo albums tucked away on a bottom shelf. Curiosity overcame propriety and she opened the first one. Inside were photos of a younger Alexander, in his early 20s she guessed, alongside an older woman with his same striking blue eyes. His mother, perhaps? They stood in front of famous landmarks, the Eiffel Tower, the Roman Colosseum, the canals of Venice. In every photo they were smiling. Not the practiced smile Alexander used for business photos, but genuine joy. Zara felt a pang, realizing she'd never seen him smile quite like that in person. The second album contained later photos. Alexander in his late 20s in hospital rooms, medical equipment surrounding him. The accident, she realized. His recovery. The same woman was there in many photos, looking older, more frail, but still with that same loving expression. His mother died 6 months after the accident. Diana's voice came from the doorway, making Zara jump guiltily. I shouldn't be snooping, she apologized, moving to close the album. Diana waved away her concern. If he didn't want them seen, they wouldn't be here. She entered the room, sitting beside Zara on the window seat. Elizabeth Stone was a remarkable woman. She nursed Alexander through the worst of his recovery, even while battling cancer herself. Zara looked down at the photos with new understanding. He mentioned she died, but not the circumstances. Alexander doesn't speak much about that time, Diana said. The accident, losing his mother, learning he could never have children, it all happened within a year. That's awful, Zara murmured, suddenly understanding more about the man who was her child's father. The miracle pregnancy meant more than she'd realized, not just a medical impossibility, but the fulfillment of something Alexander must have grieved and accepted as lost forever. Diana studied her face. You care for him, she observed, beyond the practicalities of co-parenting. Zara didn't deny it. Is that foolish? No, the doctor replied thoughtfully. But it is complicated. Alexander Stone is not a simple man to love. I never said anything about love, Zara protested quickly. Diana's smile was knowing. Of course not. That night, Zara dreamed of Alexander as she'd seen him in the photos. Young, carefree, before life had carved grief and hardship into him. In the dream, he stood on the beach outside her window watching the waves, waiting for something, or someone. She woke with a strange sense of anticipation, counting the hours until Friday when he would arrive. One more day. That day passed slowly despite Diana's medical discussions and Elena's offers of activities. Zara found herself gravitating to the small dock where Alexander's seaplane would land, watching the horizon as if she could make him appear through sheer force of will. He'll be here tomorrow, Elena reassured her gently when she found Zara sitting there late in the afternoon. Mr. Stone always keeps his promises. Does he? Zara asked, genuinely curious about this insight from someone who clearly knew him well. Elena nodded firmly. Always. It's one of his most defining traits. If Alexander Stone gives his word, you can consider it done. The simple certainty in Elena's voice was comforting. Zara returned to the house feeling lighter, more confident in the choice she'd made to come here, to trust Alexander with not just her safety but, increasingly, with her heart. When she checked her phone that evening, there was a message from him. Tests complete. Leaving within the hour. See you tomorrow, earlier than expected. She typed back immediately, flying overnight? Can't wait until morning, came the reply, making her smile. Later, as she prepared for bed, Zara found herself standing before the full-length mirror, studying her profile. At 12 weeks, there was just the slightest curve to her abdomen, not enough for others to notice but a profound change to her own eyes. She placed her hand over the small bump, thinking of the miracle growing within. Alexander's miracle. Their child. For the first time since seeing that positive pregnancy test, Zara allowed herself to fully embrace the wonder of it all. Not just the medical impossibility, but the new life they had created together. A life that had brought Alexander Stone back into her world in ways neither of them could have predicted. We're okay, she whispered to her unborn child. Whatever happens, we're going to be okay. The certainty in her own voice surprised her. But as she drifted to sleep, Zara realized it was true. Whether here on this island paradise or back in the real world, she was no longer facing this journey alone. Tomorrow Alexander would arrive. And somehow, together, they would figure out the next steps in this extraordinary story that had become their lives. Zara woke to the distant sound of an engine. Still half asleep, she stumbled to her terrace doors, pulling them open just in time to see a seaplane descending toward the dock. Alexander. He was early, the sun had barely crested the horizon. Without thinking about appearances, she threw a light robe over her pajamas and slipped on sandals, hurrying through the quiet house and down the path to the dock. By the time she reached it, the plane had landed and a figure was emerging. Alexander looked different from when she'd last seen him. More casual in khaki pants and a simple white linen shirt, his dark hair tousled from the flight. He carried only a small bag, suggesting he'd left the rest of his luggage to be dealt with by staff. He spotted her immediately, his tired face lighting up. Without hesitation, he crossed the dock in long strides and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "You're here early," she murmured against his shoulder, surprised by how right it felt to be in his arms. "I couldn't wait," he replied simply, drawing back to look at her. His eyes moved over her face as if memorizing every detail. "You look rested. The island agrees with you." "It's beautiful," she acknowledged. "Like something from a dream." Alexander smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "My mother thought so too. This was her sanctuary before it became mine." The mention of his mother reminded Zara of the photo albums. "I saw the pictures," she admitted. "In the library. Your mother was beautiful." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, followed by softness. "She was. In every way that matters." He offered his arm. "Shall we walk? I've been sitting on planes and in meetings for days." They strolled along the beach as the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the sand. Alexander asked about her days on the island, listening attentively to her descriptions of the medical tests, the house, the peaceful surroundings. "And the media?" she asked finally. "Has the storm passed?" His expression tightened. "Not entirely. They still don't know who you are, but they're speculating wildly." He squeezed her hand. "I've prepared a statement, but I wanted to discuss it with you first." "What kind of statement?" Alexander stopped walking, turning to face her. "One that confirms I'm expecting a child but requests privacy. One that neither confirms nor denies the miracle aspect. Let them speculate about medical procedures or whatever else they want." "And me?" Zara asked. "What does it say about me?" "Nothing specific," he assured her. "Just that the mother of my child deserves privacy and respect." The phrase, "mother of my child," sent an unexpected thrill through her. It was the first time either of them had spoken of her role so directly. "When will you release it?" "That depends on you," he said. "And on what we decide is best moving forward." There was something in his tone, a hesitancy she hadn't heard before. "What do you mean?" Alexander took a deep breath. "I've been thinking, Zara. About the future. About what happens after the baby is born." Her heart quickened. "And?" "The media interest won't fade," he said frankly. "If anything, it will intensify. My child, our child, will always be of interest to the public." "Because of who you are," she acknowledged. "Yes. And because of the unusual circumstances. A miracle baby born to a supposedly infertile billionaire? It's a story they'll never let go." Zara sighed, knowing he was right. "So what are our options?" Alexander guided her to a small wooden bench nestled among palm trees, overlooking the ocean. Once they were seated, he turned to face her, his expression suddenly vulnerable. "We could live separately," he began. "I would provide financial support, security, whatever you need. You could have a life away from the spotlight as much as possible." The thought made her heart sink, though she tried not to show it. "And the other option?" Alexander took her hands in his. "We could face it together." He paused, seeming to gather courage. "As a family." The word hung between them, heavy with implication. "A family," she repeated slowly. "You mean marriage?" "Eventually, perhaps. If that's what we both want." His thumbs traced circles on the backs of her hands. "For now, I'm suggesting we present a united front. Live together, prepare for the baby together." "Where?" she asked practically. "At your house in the mountains?" He shook his head. "I've purchased property outside the city. 40 acres, completely private. The construction team is ready to build whatever home you envision. Something comfortable, secure, with room for us and the baby." The offer was overwhelming in its generosity, its implications. "Alexander, I can't let you." "This isn't charity, Zara," he interrupted gently. "This is me trying to create a safe, happy environment for our child. For us, if that's what you want." There was that vulnerability again, the hint of uncertainty beneath his confident exterior. This powerful man who could buy islands and build custom homes was nervous about her answer. "What do I want?" she repeated softly, looking out at the turquoise waters. 3 months ago, I wanted a promotion to head nurse. Now," she turned back to him. "Now I want our child to be healthy. I want peace and privacy. And I want—" She hesitated, searching his face, the face that had become increasingly dear to her. "What?" he prompted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to see if there's something real between us," she admitted. "Something that might have existed even without the baby." Relief washed over his features. "I want that too. More than you know." "It won't be easy," she warned. "You're you and I'm perfect," he finished for her. "Funny, intelligent, compassionate, and the mother of my child. The woman who's made me believe in miracles again." His words warmed her from within. Still, practicality demanded consideration. "What about my career? I've worked hard to get where I am." Alexander nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I would never ask you to give that up. Once the baby comes, you can decide what you want. Return to work full-time, part-time, or focus on family for a while. Whatever you choose, I'll support you." His thoughtfulness touched her deeply. This wasn't the demanding billionaire the tabloids portrayed, but a man trying genuinely to build a life that would include her dreams alongside his. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's try. Together." Alexander's smile was blinding in its intensity. Without warning, he pulled her into his arms, lifting her slightly off the ground in his enthusiasm. "Alexander," she laughed, her hands finding his shoulders for balance. He set her down gently, his expression becoming serious again. "I promise you won't regret this, Zara. I'll do everything in my power to make this work, to make you happy. Just be patient with me," she requested, suddenly shy. "This is all still so new, so overwhelming." "We have time," he assured her, brushing a tender kiss against her forehead. "All the time we need." As they walked back toward the house, hand in hand, Zara felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This wasn't how she'd imagined her life unfolding, but perhaps that was the nature of miracles. They arrived unexpectedly, changing everything in their wake. For the next 3 days they existed in a private paradise. Alexander showed her his favorite spots on the island. A hidden cove with exceptionally clear water, a hilltop with panoramic views, a hammock strung between 2 palms that was perfect for afternoon naps. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite books, hopes for the future. Alexander spoke more openly about his mother, about the grief of losing her so soon after his accident. Zara shared stories of her own mother's struggles and triumphs as a single parent. In the evenings, they sat on her terrace watching the sunset, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him. Physical intimacy developed naturally, carefully, a tentative kiss on the second evening that deepened into something more meaningful. Nights spent simply holding each other as they adjusted to this new dimension of their relationship. On their 4th morning together, reality intruded in the form of Diana's test results. "Everything looks perfect," the doctor reported as they sat in the medical suite. "Both mother and baby are in excellent health." "And the unusual circumstances?" Alexander asked, his hand finding Zara's. Diana smiled. Medical science doesn't have an explanation, Alexander. Sometimes we just have to accept miracles for what they are. They decided to return to the mainland the following day. Alexander's statement had been released, confirming the pregnancy while requesting privacy. The initial media frenzy had died down somewhat, though interest remained high. "Are you ready for this?" Alexander asked as they packed. Zara considered the question carefully. "No," she admitted honestly, "but I'm ready to try. With you." His smile was worth every doubt, every fear she'd overcome to reach this point. "Then that's enough for now." That night, their last on the island, they sat on the beach under a canopy of stars. Alexander had arranged a small bonfire and a simple dinner on blankets laid over the sand. "It's beautiful," Zara said, watching the flames dance against the darkening sky. "It is," Alexander agreed, though when she turned to him, he was looking at her, not the fire. The intensity of his gaze made her heart skip. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He reached for her hand, his expression turning serious. "I'm thinking about how quickly life can change. How one moment, one person, can alter everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world." "Alexander." "Let me finish," he requested gently. "Before you, Zara, I'd accepted certain limitations in my life. That I couldn't have children. That real connection was something that happened to other people, not to me." He squeezed her hand. "You changed all that." Tears pricked at her eyes, unexpected and unstoppable. "That night at the gala was the best decision I ever made," he completed. "Coming to talk to you. Even if it had only ever been that one night, it would have been worth it. But now we have more," she whispered. "So much more," he agreed, reaching into his pocket. "Which is why I wanted to give you this." He held out a small velvet box. Zara's breath caught. "It's not what you think," he said quickly, opening it to reveal not a ring, but a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant in the shape of two intertwined circles. "It's a promise, not a proposal. At least not yet." Relief mingled with a curious disappointment as she examined the beautiful piece. "A promise of what?" "That whatever comes next, we face it together," Alexander explained, his voice steady though his hands trembled slightly. "That I'm committed to building something real with you, Zara. Something that would exist with or without the miracle that brought us back together." The simple sincerity of his words touched her more deeply than any grand gesture could have. "It's beautiful," she said, turning so he could fasten it around her neck. His fingers brushed her skin as he closed the clasp, sending shivers down her spine. When she turned back to face him, his expression was tender, hopeful. "I'm not rushing you," he assured her. "Marriage, living together, those are big steps. I just want you to know where I stand." Zara touched the pendant resting against her collarbone. "Where we stand," she corrected softly. "Together." The kiss they shared beneath the stars felt like another kind of promise. One that needed no words, no jewelry to make it real. It was a promise written in the language of two hearts finding their way toward each other against all odds. When they finally broke apart, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "Ready to return to the real world tomorrow?" Zara nodded. "As long as you're with me." "Always," he promised, gathering her close as they watched the flames dance before them, illuminating the first pages of their new chapter together. 7 months later, Zara stood by the nursery window, watching the sun rise over their new home. The 40 acres Alexander had purchased had been transformed into a private sanctuary, a modern yet welcoming house surrounded by gardens and woodlands, secure fencing and state-of-the-art security providing the privacy they needed. Her hand rested on her now prominent belly, feeling the baby's morning movements. Any day now their miracle would arrive in the world. "There you are," Alexander's voice came from behind her, followed by his arms encircling her, his hands joining hers. "I woke up and you were gone. Your son was restless," she explained, leaning back against him. "We decided to watch the sunrise." "My son, is it?" he chuckled, his breath warm against her ear. "You sound very certain." "Mother's intuition," she replied with a smile. The past months had brought challenges along with joy. The media interest had indeed continued, though Alexander's legal team had aggressively pursued any outlets that crossed the lines of privacy he'd established. Eventually, most had respected their wishes, reporting on the upcoming birth without harassing them directly. Zara had taken an extended leave from nursing, though Alexander had surprised her by arranging for a medical clinic to be built on their property. "For after the baby comes," he'd explained. "If you want to practice medicine without commuting, you could see patients here. Particularly those who can't afford quality care elsewhere." The thoughtfulness of the gesture had moved her to tears, He'd found a way to honor her calling while accommodating their new reality. As for their relationship, it had deepened day by day. They'd moved into the new house together when it was completed 3 months earlier, establishing a home that reflected both their tastes and needs. The promised ring had appeared on her finger 2 months ago, a simple but stunning diamond that Alexander had designed himself. Not too ostentatious, he'd said as he slipped it on her finger after a private dinner in their garden. I know you'd hate that. The wedding would wait until after the baby came, a small, private ceremony with only their closest friends in attendance. Tasha would be her maid of honor, Alexander's childhood friend James his best man. The rest of the world could speculate, but they would celebrate their union in their own way on their own terms. What time is Diana arriving? Alexander asked, gently turning Zara to face him. 9, she answered. Though I told her there's no rush. First babies often take their time. Alexander kissed her forehead, a gesture that had become a familiar comfort. I can't believe we're almost there. After everything. She understood what he meant. After the medical impossibility, the media circus, the adjustments to their new life together, they were about to meet their child. Scared? She asked softly. Terrified, he admitted with a wry smile. You. Completely, she confirmed. But also ready. We've waited long enough to meet him. Alexander guided her to the rocking chair they'd placed by the nursery window, helping her sit before kneeling beside her. I have something for you. Alexander, you've given me enough gifts to last a lifetime, she protested, though she couldn't help smiling at his boyish enthusiasm. He produced a small package wrapped in silver paper. This isn't from me. Not exactly. Curious, Zara unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small leather-bound journal, the pages yellowed with age. Opening it, she found handwritten entries in elegant script. It was my mother's, Alexander explained quietly. Her pregnancy journal when she was expecting me. She wrote about everything, her hopes, her fears, advice she wanted to pass on. He swallowed visibly. I found it after she died, but I couldn't bring myself to read it until now. I thought you might want to share it with our son someday. Tell him about the grandmother he'll never meet. Tears filled Zara's eyes. Of all the gifts Alexander had given her, the house, the clinic, the financial security, this was perhaps the most precious. A piece of family history, a connection to the past for their child. Thank you, she whispered, clutching the journal to her heart. This means everything. Alexander smiled, though his own eyes glistened suspiciously. There's something else. Something I've been meaning to tell you. What is it? She asked, noting the sudden seriousness in his expression. He took her hands in his. I've been thinking about the accident, about what the doctors told me. About this miracle. He glanced at her stomach. I think my mother might have had something to do with it. Zara tilted her head, puzzled. What do you mean? Before she died, Alexander explained softly, she made me promise I wouldn't give up on family, on having children of my own. I told her it was impossible, but she just smiled and said, nothing is impossible if you open your heart to it. He shook his head slightly. I thought it was the medication talking, or just a mother's wishful thinking. And now? Zara prompted gently. Now I wonder if somehow, somewhere she had a hand in bringing you into my life. In making the impossible possible. The idea was fanciful, not at all like the practical businessman she'd come to know. Yet there was something beautiful about it. The notion that love could transcend even death, that Alexander's mother might still be watching over him. I'd like to believe that, Zara said, squeezing his hands. That our son has a guardian angel watching over him already. Alexander nodded, pressing a kiss to her fingers. Whatever the explanation, medical miracle, divine intervention, my mother's stubborn will from beyond, I'm just grateful every day that you walked into that gala. So am I, she agreed, then gasped as a sharp pain seized her abdomen. Alexander's eyes widened. Zara? She breathed through the contraction, recognizing it for what it was. I think your son is ready to make his entrance. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Diana arrived quickly after Alexander's call, examining Zara and confirming she was indeed in labor. The birthing suite they'd prepared in the east wing of the house, Zara had insisted on a home birth if possible, was readied. A second doctor and 2 nurses arrived as backup, part of the comprehensive plan Alexander had arranged. Through it all, he never left her side, supporting her through each contraction, whispering encouragement, wiping her brow, massaging her back. When the most intense pain hit, he absorbed her grip on his hand without complaint, his eyes never leaving her face. You can do this, he repeated like a mantra. You're the strongest person I know, Zara Reed. Our son is lucky to have you as his mother. As dawn approached the following day, the final pushes brought their miracle into the world. A healthy, robust boy with a strong cry in his father's piercing blue eyes. He's perfect, Alexander breathed as Diana placed the swaddled infant in Zara's arms. Absolutely perfect. Exhausted but jubilant, Zara studied the tiny face, the delicate nose, the rosebud mouth, the wisps of dark hair. Hello, little one, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. Alexander perched carefully on the edge of the bed, one arm around Zara, the other hand gently touching his son's cheek. What shall we call him? They discussed names but hadn't settled on one, wanting to meet their child first. Now, looking at the peaceful baby in her arms, Zara knew. Elijah, she said. It means Jehovah is God, or, my God is Yahweh. It's a name associated with miracles. Elijah, Alexander repeated, testing the sound. Elijah Alexander Stone. Do you like it? She asked, watching his face. His smile was answer enough. It's perfect. Like him. Like you. As the medical team discreetly left them alone with their newborn, Alexander shifted to lie alongside Zara on the bed, cradling his family in his arms. Thank you, he whispered against her hair. For everything. For Elijah. For giving me a family when I thought it was impossible. Thank you for not giving up, she replied, leaning against his strength. For believing in miracles. Outside their window, the sun rose fully on a new day, the first day of their son's life, the beginning of their journey as a family. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by a love as unexpected and miraculous as the child sleeping peacefully in their arms. Elijah Alexander Stone, the baby that shouldn't exist, born of a night that was supposed to be just a feeling, had transformed two lives forever. What had begun as a medical impossibility had become the greatest gift of all. Proof that sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin with the most unlikely circumstances. As Alexander pressed a tender kiss to Zara's forehead, then to his son's, she knew with absolute certainty that their miracle was just beginning.